Alright you guys, so my ficus has spider mites and I cannot believe it. I literally cannot stand spider mites. I hate them so much. Last winter it was just horrible with spider mites in my home. I don't know where they come from. They just sneak their way in and I just hate them. This dry air is just horrible in my home right now. The humidity is like barely 30% and yeah, they just love it. They thrive and they just attack your plants and they suck the life out of them. So I'm going to show you the plant that has spider mites. We are going to treat it together and I'm going to show you what I use that works the best and the process to get rid of them. And yeah, I'll kind of take you through each step here and kind of some helpful tips and tricks that I do so your plant can survive and make it. So yes, let's get started. This ficus is covered in webbing and we haven't had much sun around here, so I honestly haven't noticed, and I've kind of been neglecting this ficus. I haven't been wiping the leaves or anything recently. It was just like on my to-do list. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And the sneaky little devils have decided to show their faces. Do you see all that webbing there? There's so much of it. There's little spider mites crawling around everywhere. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to treat them and get rid of them in this video. So yes, I just want to show you what the webbing and stuff looks like in case you didn't know what spider mites looked like. They're really white. They're hard to see. They're white little dots, and you mostly can find them on the leaves, and on the underside of the leaves you'll notice webbing and little white dots. Sometimes you'll notice like bigger mites that crawl around, but yes, they will literally suck the life out of your plant. Okay, so this is what I use. It's called Azamax. It is a miticide, and this is the only thing that I have found that works for me. This is the bottle that comes in there, and you can squeeze this up in here and measure it out. And I have some already made in a spray bottle, so I'm going to use this first, and if this isn't enough, I will dilute and make some more, but yes, I'm going to use this first. So this I highly recommend. I usually only have to do one treatment and the mites are gone. There was one plant that I had to do a second treatment with, but I'm going to show you guys the process of spraying him down next, and then how to go from there. Okay, you guys, so the plant that is covered in mites is in my bathtub. I brought him in here. I'm going to spray him down and get all the mites off, and I'll flip this around and show you guys what I do. But the first thing you want to do is take a hose if you have one, or if you don't, you can try and take it to your faucet in the kitchen or wherever you have a hose, and you want to try and jet blast the leaves off with water to knock as many of them off as possible, because you don't want to start spraying with the Azamax until you try and get off as much as possible. I don't really recommend wiping the leaves. I just recommend taking a hose and jet blasting and spraying the crap out of the plant with the water. I'm going to probably do that for a couple minutes and just jet blast the entire thing and get as much off as possible. And then I'm going to be spraying down the plant. I made up my Azamax solution here. So I'm going to be spraying him down, and I'm going to let this soak on the plant leaves until it dries. I'm not going to rinse it off. It'll be the last thing I do. You want to make sure to spray the pot as well, the actual nursery pot, because the mites might be hiding up under there or on the side. You just don't know. So some of the solution will fall into the soil. You can do a soil drench and make up a different concentration and put some into the soil, because sometimes when you're spraying the plant, some of the eggs might fall into the soil, but I feel like some of this leaks into the pot, so I really don't have to do that method. So yes, let me flip this around and I'm going to show you, I'll show you my process. Okay, I think I have saturated every leaf front and back, all the stems. I sprayed the pot on top of the soil. I literally sprayed everything on this guy. I used about half of my spray bottle. And yeah, I'm going to let that soak. I'm not going to rinse it off or touch it. And I'm going to wash his little container out that he was in, and I'll show you where I'm going to put him to kind of hibernate. Don't mind my messy home, you guys. We are in the process of trying to pack up for our move, but this is where I'm going to keep him. He's still dripping wet from the miticide, but I'm going to keep him in this little corner here, and I'm going to let that completely soak in and absorb and kill any of the mites. And I'll check on him in a couple of days just to see how things are going. But yeah, he's going to stay quarantined probably for a couple of weeks, because I'm not going to take any chances putting him back in my collection so he can infect other plants. But usually one treatment works. We'll see. I'm going to check on him in like 2 to 3 days and see if there's any more. The miticide I use recommends retreating in 7 to 14 days. So usually after a week, if I still see mites, I will do a second treatment, but usually one treatment works. But I think this guy was pretty heavily infested, so I'm not sure if one treatment's going to completely take care of him. We will see, but I will update you in a couple more days on this guy. I wanted to touch on a few things. So number one, if you find mites, quarantine the plant right away. If you can't treat it right away, just get it off to a place that is completely away from other plants. It doesn't matter, just get it out of the way. That's number one most important thing. And you're going to feel like super down and stressed, because that's how I feel. And when you find pests on your plants, it's never a fun thing. And yeah, it's just super frustrating because it takes so much energy and time into maintaining and caring for your plants. And then when you find pests, it's just so much extra work, especially when you have a collection like I do and it's like close to 200 plants, and it can really get you down. So yes, but it'll be okay. You know, if the plant really means something to you, definitely treat the best you can. And if it's a plant you don't care about, if you find that it's like covered in mites and you just don't want to deal with it, no shame in tossing it and getting rid of it. Just get rid of it. If it's going to stress you out, if you don't care about the plant, don't worry about treating it, trying to save it. It's not worth the hassle unless the plant truly means something to you. Because I've dealt with spider mites so much, so sometimes I just want to like chuck the whole thing and be like, I'm never getting this plant again, because it's so susceptible to mites. So I understand the frustration with these guys. So do what's best for you. You don't have to treat, but if it's going to stress you out and the plant just isn't worth it, just get rid of it. Okay, and the second thing that you want to do is when you're ready to treat it, you want to spray the whole entire plant off with a hose. Any type of hose, faucet. If you don't have one, take it outside, hose it off. Don't take it outside if the weather's bad in winter right now. That would be bad. Don't expose your plant to cold. Temperatures below 50, I do not recommend taking outside. But hose it off the best you can. You want to try and knock off as many mites as you can. Hose and spray the thing down for like 5 minutes if you have to. You just want to rub the leaves, you know, spray it off. Just get all the mites off as you possibly can. And do that before you treat with the miticide. Okay, after you have sprayed the plant off, you want to completely drench the plant in the miticide all over, front and back, the leaves, around the nursery pot. You just want to completely get the whole entire thing saturated, because based off my experience, if you do not get the entire plant, if you miss leaves and there's mites on those leaves, they will survive and they will reinfect your plant. I've had that happen before. So you want to try and get every nook and cranny, every leaf. It takes a while. It probably took me like 10 minutes to spray the ficus down. So yes, spray and saturate the entire plant. And next, do not rinse off the miticide. You want to let that absorb and soak in. I wouldn't put the plant in any bright direct light. I don't know if it would burn, but I would just keep it kind of quarantined in some like lower light. Just let that absorb and do its job, and hopefully the mites will just all die. That is the goal. But yes, after you spray, just keep it in quarantine. Do not put it back in your collection thinking that they're gone after you sprayed. No, keep keep that plant quarantined for at least a week, 2 weeks. Do not put it back with the rest of your collection. That is going to be bad if the mites are still there, and they're going to reinfect and spread very quickly. Okay, so this monstera here was next to the ficus, and so some of the leaves here were next to it, and I can see some spider mites on some of the leaves, and it's going to be hard to see, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. And the way you can find them is bringing the plant up to a light source. And if you look closely, you're going to notice a little bit here, and there's a couple here, but it's going to be kind of hard to show on camera. Let's see, but in that corner, I'm going to try and zoom in here. There's a little white dot right there in that corner, and if you tilt the leaf slightly, you can see there is like a tiny bit of webbing where that shadow is right there. I don't know if you can see them. And there's a couple here on this side of the leaf. So I try and do my best to check all of the leaves, and if I see a couple, you know, it's not bad, but it will get to be a problem if you leave it. So since a lot of this plant has these little leaves that are yellowing, I think I'm just going to cut these off, and I'm still going to spray the whole plant down just in case those spread to the rest of the plant. I only see them on like a few of the leaves that were close to the ficus, so it's not bad, but I'm still going to spray and clean this entire plant off, and I'm gonna like leave him back kind of away from the other plants so he's not touching any of the other ones. Okay, so after you put your plant back in quarantine and you want to check on the plant every, like, I would say like every 3 to 4 days, just kind of take the plant into some bright sunlight. That is going to be your best way to see webbing. That's going to be the best way to see mites, because if the room is dark and your plant's in like a low light, you're not going to be able to see them. I use a flashlight sometimes. That really helps. You want to shine a bright light on the plant, and it really helps you see the webbing, see the little white dots, see them move, see them crawl. And yeah, after a few days, if you notice that there's still some mites, or if you miss spots, then wait a few more days. The miticide I use says to retreat at least in 7 days, so just keep it quarantined, and once it's been about 7 days, do the whole process again. Spray the entire plant off, hose it down, and retreat with the miticide, and leave it in quarantine for another week. And another important thing is you want to make sure to clean any of the ceramic pots the nursery pot was in, the plant stand, the shelf, anywhere that you had that plant. You want to disinfect and sanitize in case there's any mites hanging out. You don't want to put the plant back into the same pot, the nursery pot or the ceramic pot, so it can get reinfected with mites. That's the last thing you want to do, so make sure you clean everything. Don't mind my messy room, you guys. I am in the process of moving soon, so there's boxes and stuff everywhere. But so these are some of the stands that I had the plants on, and this was the monstera. So I'm going to be completely scrubbing this down and wiping the plant stand, and just like this whole area, I'm just going to make sure to sanitize. I was getting ready to take this ceramic that the monstera was into the tub so I could hose it down, but I want to show you why it's important to clean the ceramic or whatever kind of pot that your plant is in, as well as the stand, because I don't know if you can see, but right down in there, there's like a little floating piece of like moss or dirt. It's probably from the spider mites, so yes, and there's probably like little ones that I can't see just because this is like a white pot, so that's why it's important to clean the pot out, because you just never know. If you don't see any more mites after a week, I would recommend keeping it quarantined a little bit longer just to be sure. But after 2 weeks for sure, if you don't see any more mites, I would say it's safe to put it back with the rest of your collection. But definitely keep an eye on things, keep an eye on your surrounding plants, and check them more frequently, because you never know, you could have missed some plants, you could have missed some mites, and now that it's been a week or two, they could have spread more and reinfected other plants. So definitely keep an eye on your plants in that area that the initial plant was found, so you can treat those and quarantine those. I also just wanted to touch on why we get spider mites and why it happens. So a lot of the times I get questions on where do mites come from, and it's a good question. They come from anywhere. They love dry winter climate. Like right now, the humidity in my home is like 30%, which is barely anything. And it's really bad, and these plants hate the dry air, but spider mites just thrive in this climate. And that's when I notice mites in my home, is when the humidity is really low and it's winter. So yes, that's pretty much the main reason why they come. They just thrive in this environment, and they're going to feed on your plants. So they can come in from outside, they can crawl, they can come in through your window. It doesn't have to be open, they can find their way in. You know, you go outside and you can bring them in on your clothing. They could be on you and you don't know it, and you brush by your plant and you could give them mites. They just find their way in sometimes, so don't think it's something that you missed. And it's really important to stay diligent and be on top of cleaning your plant leaves as well, because dusty leaves will attract mites and dead dry leaves will attract mites. So that's why I personally cut dead and dried leaves off, and they're attracted to plants that are in stress, that I've noticed. Or maybe the plant is just declining and you notice a change in the leaves. A lot of the time mites will have a discoloration in the leaves as well. It's like very blotchy, spotty yellowing discoloration, where they're like literally eating the plant. And if you notice any kind of discoloration with your plants and the leaves, they're turning yellow, it's splotchy, it's like a bunch of white little, or a bunch of yellow little dots on your leaves, definitely check for mites. I guarantee it's probably mites. So if you notice any type of stress with your plant, they're attracted to that. And specifically plants that are more prone to mites would be calatheas and marantas. And I personally have had mites on ficus like 3 other times before, so I don't know if ficus are just in generally attracted to mites, but this is not my first ficus with mites. And yeah, just some other, like any plant can really get mites, but those are definitely some ones that are more prone to mites. So yes, it's really just important to keep those leaves clean. I use neem oil and dish soap, like Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap. Be careful with some dish soaps because they can burn the plant leaves. Their dish soap can be harmful to the leaves. So the Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap that I just use a couple drops in my neem oil and wipe the leaves. I try to do that every so often, you know, to keep those leaves clean, so the plants, one, can photosynthesize and grow. Dusty leaves will not absorb light as well, and it keeps the pest off your plants. So, but I definitely recommend this miticide. I have tried neem oil, I have tried like Captain Jack's, I have tried some other stuff. They just don't work and the mites come back. So I have had 100% success so far with this Azamax. And someone recommended it to me in a plant group when I was having a problem with mites, and so that's what they like insisted on me getting. So I tried it and I was just shocked at the results and how well it worked. So I highly recommend. I know it's expensive, but if you get spider mites a lot on your plants, or you have like a plant that means a lot to you, I definitely would recommend getting it. That bottle will last you a little while, so yes, it's worth it in my opinion, because plants can be expensive, and if mites spread to like 20 plants, that's like 20 plants you're now going to have to treat and look after. So yes, it's important to get something that works and that you know that works, so you can knock the problem in the butt and get rid of them. So yes. All right, you guys, I am going to do a spider mite check. I have not checked on this ficus since I quarantined him. These are some other two that had just a tiny bit of spider mites, so they're like quarantining separately. And my money tree had spider mites a long time ago, and I kind of left him isolated ever since, because he was the only plant that I had to treat twice with the Azamax. I found them after about a week. I found more, and I just think I probably just didn't get every nook and cranny. So I've left him isolated, and I'm going to show you what spider mite damage can look like on leaves, because that to me is a telltale sign when you have spider mites. Okay, I'm going to bring this one closer. So you can kind of tell on this leaf, you see those yellow dots where it's like discolored, those little yellow little pinpoint dots everywhere. So that is old spider mite damage, and that's what it looks like when the leaves get damaged from spider mites. You see it on this one too in the light, those yellow dots. So if you see this on your plant leaves, there is a really, really good chance that you have spider mites. So that is a classic telltale sign to me if I have spider mites, if you see that on the leaves. And you can really see them when you bring it into the light. That is the best way to spot spider mites. So I've just kind of left him in isolation. He doesn't get the best light up here, but I just didn't feel comfortable putting him back with my plants, so he kind of stayed isolated. So yes, I am going to check this ficus. I have one window here that I'm going to use, and I'm just going to use my cat stand. But I'm going to take him into the light here where I can see a little bit closer. And yeah, I forget how many days it's been since I sprayed, but I am going to check this guy, and I'm going to turn around this way because you can really see in the light. So yes, let me, I'm actually going to do a thorough check off camera, and if I see any more, I'll show you, but let me do a thorough check real quick. Okay, I kind of did like a thorough glance over most of the leaves, and it's hard to say. He's a little dirty from when I sprayed him, so little dots sometimes can be misleading, but I don't think there's any, but just because I have had experience with ficus plants, and from previous experiences, I've had my ficus get spider mites, I might respray him in a few more days after it's been a week and just do like a second spray just to make sure I don't miss anything. I don't see like any obvious webbing in the light like I did before. I don't see anything crawling that I can tell, but it's really going to be hard to see. They're really just going to hang out on the back side of the leaves, so you just really have to bring them into the light and do a thorough check. It can take a while, but yeah, I don't see any obvious mites crawling around. So yeah, I will not put him back in with the rest of my collection. Yeah, nothing that I can tell. So I don't know. There might be some that might show up in a few days. So I'm going to recheck him in a couple days and go from there. But I'm going to leave him back in quarantine. He's not really getting a lot of light, but that is okay. So he's going to hang out there, and I'll recheck again in a few more days. Hey guys, popping on here again. It's been 11 days since I treated this ficus right here, and I haven't done anything else with this plant, and I just kind of looked over and I don't really see any mites or anything, so I'm going to leave him quarantined for a few more days and he should be good if no mites have popped up. It's been 11 days, so I don't think any mites will show up. It's been kind of long enough since I treated, so I feel like at this point it would be fine to put him back in you know, where he was before, but I want to give it a few more days and just let him be and do another look over, and then I'll put him back. So yes, I don't see anything. I don't have to retreat. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to let him quarantine for a few more days and do one more check, and then he should be good. And yeah, I also want to show, I'm going to put a picture in here too of like another plant that has like old mite damage, so you can see what it looks like on the leaves. Yes, if you have any questions about spider mites or you're not sure if you have mites, you can always DM me over on my Instagram. I'm super active over there. I post daily and I have highlights saved. And yeah, if you ever have questions or concerns, leave a comment. I'll be happy to try and help. And yeah, hopefully this is helpful for you and can help you spot them if you're not sure if you have mites or what to look for. So this is just what I have found works best for me, and I just wanted to share with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, just let me know if you have any questions. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.